And we're live. Hi, everybody, and welcome to DotNetNuke. We were just talking about DotNetNuke being the term we're not supposed to use, but hey, we are the Chicago area .NET Nuke users group. We could also call ourselves Chicago Style DNN, which is what we just recently did. We gave ourselves a new look, a new logo. Everybody who saw it said, "Hey, I'm getting hungry for that great Chicago style pizza." And it seems to have done exactly what we hoped that it would do. Um, making people think about Chicago, one of the iconic things that Chicago is known for, and associate that with our with DNN. So welcome and thank you to our sponsor, Power DNN, for having us live on ChicagoDNN.org. Let me show you what our agenda is for tonight. First thing we're going to do is our welcome and talk about us a little bit and our sponsors. Then we're going to talk about the corporate news. Jim Nagy from Sprocket Websites is going to be giving us what's the latest with DNN Corporate, their little makeover that they've done of late, as well as version 7.1. Which is out and available. We're going to talk about the upcoming events in our community, both the DNN community and the Chicago community. And then we have our guest, Gifford Watkins from Atlantic Webfitters, who's going to be telling us about how one can make some money being a DNN shop. And yes, it is something that you can do, and he's got some plans for us. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, give him more of an introduction at that point. So that's what's happening tonight when we're talking, which should be right about an hour's time. So if you're watching this outside of being here with us live, to get an idea of how much time you're going to be investing with us and learning about these things. So first thing is some of our founders and some of the brain power behind running Chicago Style DNN. Thank you to all of these folks for making these things happen. I'm Don, by the way, if you don't know me or my voice at least. And these other folks here as well are part of the thought process behind putting our presentations together and having our meetings. Power DNN runs ChicagoDNN.org. They are the hosting company that does that. And when we do have a live meeting, which does happen maybe once a quarter or once every 4 months, something like that, then they pop for pizza and Coke and beers and things like that. So we thank them for that. I also put JNS Tech Designs when Jim is not building websites for us under Sprocket Websites. When he and I aren't doing that, he is helping people with large-scale consulting and business applications, and it's his GoToMeeting that he's helping us go live here and recording it. So Jim, thank you for that. Wanted to show you a new website. Speaking of Power DNN, we updated the site with the new look as well as the new logo. A lot of the things that we do on the site are the same things we have been doing. This is the DNN platform. We used to know that as .NET Community Edition. Now the DNN corporate folks are calling it the DNN platform. That's fine. Whatever term you're used to, it's what you can get for free by downloading it from DNN Corp, and what many folks like Sprocket, like Gifford, and Atlantic Outfitters can do for you to build a site for you, as Gifford's going to tell us a little bit later on. But this is the site, ChicagoDNN.org is the place to go. Please sign up for it, register on it, and be part of that. Did I say Outfitters again? I just saw a note from Gifford saying that it's not Outfitters, it's Webfitters. And I've said that so many times. I think it's because I always think of him and up in the Great White North, and I have done some great backpacking up there. So I always think Outfitters, but no, it's Atlantic Webfitters. We'll talk about him shortly. DNN's, Chicago Style DNN's mission is to help out this group of people, website owners, administrators, and developers. So folks that use DNN for their website, they don't resell it or, build websites on top of it for other people, but they need it for their own needs. And they want to know, can their website do various things? They come here to our meetings and they listen to our presentations to find out, yes, indeed, your website can do all kinds of things because of the modularity of DNN. Administrators, if you're charged with running a website, how do I get the website to do X, Y, or Z? Ask those questions. And if you're website developers and you write modules for DNN and then sell them or put them up on the Codeplex for other people to have, you basically can talk with the folks that are here about how do I make something happen, how do I use the DNN platform to do X, Y, or Z. So we do those things. If you have any questions, please use the chat window of GoToMeeting and jot them in. And if we have a Q&A later on, for instance, when we're talking to Gifford, if you want to jump in with questions, we'll turn on the mics and everybody can talk. But the easiest thing is for the various presentations as they go through to just quick jot down a question, and we'll be happy to interject that question along the way when we can fit it in. So back to the agenda, we have corporate news with Jim. Jim, I'm going to pass the presentation credentials here over to you so that you can jump in and take over. And okay, there you go.
Okay, so let me go ahead and show my screen. Show my screen. Okay, hopefully you're looking at a PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, indeed.
Excellent. So I've just got a few updates today to run through from the DotNetNuke corporate standpoint. So let's go through those. Next slide. So we'll run through, social media updates. We'll do a quick corporate update, some release updates. If there are any good module updates, we'll talk about those. And we'll talk a little bit more about the CATOG website. Tom did a great job of that, so I'll, pretty much just jump through those. First thing is our social update, and here are our social stats. We've made some good progress in the last month. We're up 6 on Chicago DNN, so we had 6 new users join us on the website, which is excellent. On DotNetNuke.com, we were up 3 from the last report. On LinkedIn, we lost a person. On Facebook, we stayed the same. Twitter, we made some good gains. We're currently following 294 people, and 151 people are following Chicago DNN. On the meetup group, we jumped up to 51 people, and on Google+, we lost 1 person in the community. So good gains on Twitter and on the main website, but lost a few people in some of the other social areas. We do like to keep track of where we're getting out there. If you're not following us in one of these areas, but you are on those social platforms, please either circle us on Google, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and join up with us on LinkedIn. So we appreciate that. The next thing here is things happening in the news. I'm sure we're all aware of, DotNetNuke changed its name, for DNN, which is now formally DotNetNuke. It's been a long time to make the transition to stop calling it .NET. But basically, they went through a name change, went through a rebranding, and and coming out the other side, lots of new things happening, lots of new things going on, and before the meeting, there were lots of new conversations that need to happen. So lots of things to be thinking about, this type of thing. So they expanded, DNN expanded its product suite, services, and software as a service with DNN Evoke. Basically, again, on July 9th, they launched this new platform called Evoke, and renaming everything. Spent a lot of time making sure that this was available to run in the cloud via Windows Azure. and we've seen a lot of activity in the community in terms of third-party modules and things like that to support Azure. So there's been lots of work, down that road. It also, they've got basically two big applications: the Evoke Content, which is what we've been familiar with community, but that's their main platform, and then Evoke Social, which is their social platform, really doing some interesting things there in terms of enabling social type features and stuff like that. I believe last month Scott did an awesome presentation on some things happening with social. So lots of good stuff there. A couple of things coming up on the DNN website. There's three seminars coming up here over the next few Wednesdays. The first one here is basically exploring features of Evoke Content. It's a beginner level seminar, but if you're interested in learning more about Evoke, it's a good seminar to attend. They're also doing another Evoke Social seminar on August 14th. So if you want to learn more about Evoke Social, that's a pretty decent presentation. I think it's the same one they've done before, but if you haven't seen it, it's pretty good. And then they're doing on the 28th 6 benefits for hosting your website in the cloud. So to learn more about hosting your website on Azure, if you're interested in that, that'll certainly happen on the 28th. So let's talk a little bit about releases. We talked about this last time. The current release of 7.0 is the .6 release. There's tons of little features and things that were cleaned up, and when you get to a .6 release, you're finally getting to a place where there's some good stability and things like that. And a few modules were updated along also. We saw last month, right after their announcement, 7.1, the production release got launched. It is a .0 release, so we always caution installing .0s and .1s and .2s in production environments. Please make sure that, as you're using these early versions, do lots of testing and make sure that you get good backups and things like that. Lots of unknowns can happen in a .0 release. So from the beta, these are the things that they had updated. A lot of issues, a few things that I've seen, causing some issues in 7.1 is the updating to jQuery 1.9.1. I've seen some skins and things not work appropriately because of the updated jQuery. They do have some features to be able to point to a different version of jQuery and things like that. But just note that, when you're doing your upgrade, watch out for some of those types of things. Again, a lot of issues around Azure and, fixing stuff, in that vein. And then just in general, fixes were also made to the platform. Several modules were touched: file manager, languages, pages, taxonomy, journal, member directory module, and social groups are all touched in 7.1. So those are some updates. And quickly moving on past releases and things like that, going back to the CatUg site, Don had mentioned that we are PowerDNN does our sponsor us and gives us a great hosting platform to utilize. These guys always do a good job for us in supporting us, so we recommend them. And if you have needs, certainly check out PowerDNN and make sure that you give them a good look if you're looking to host a .NETNuke website. This is our new update. Don showed this a little earlier, but we did refresh and touch up the website, rebranded, relogoed, did all that stuff. So if you haven't been into the Chicago DNN website for a while, stop on by, take a look, see what kind of information is out there. Give us some feedback. Let us know what kind of things you'd like to see and that type of information. We're always trying to make the site better and more useful for the community. So that is one last public service announcement here. If you do want to contribute to the website, please let me know. We'd love to have guest bloggers and people adding content to the website. If you're running a blog and want to cross-blog your information, we're happy to set that up and make that happen. So let us know if you're interested in doing that. We're happy to get you an account and share information on the site. That's pretty much what I have. Don, I'll go ahead and turn that back over to you and let you guys move on, and we'll get to the meat of tonight's meeting. So.
Thanks very much. Yeah, we you pointed out the new look, and let me let's see, show my screen. There you go. Um, if you, I hope you could see the agenda slide back again that I had up there before. If that, I think that should all have switched over. So we talked about the website and the new look and the Chicago style DNN. Uh, I we certainly can't hide it because the great folks over in the Carolinas did their Kentucky Fried DNN. We said, yeah, well, that's good for them, but Chicago is Chicago style pizza, so everyone knows that. So let's do Chicago style DNN. And we had considered doing a conference, a day of .NET Nuke in Chicago again. Way back when we did a day of .NET Nuke in Chicago, and then the next year the DNN folks asked us to hold off, not to do it because they had big plans. They were going to do the big thing called DNN World down in Orlando. And so we said, okay, fine, no problem. We'll be happy to put our efforts towards promoting DNN, and we'll all get down together. I'll get together down in Orlando. So we did that, and then we did it again, and then they told us that they weren't going to do DNN World anymore, or at least there was no plan on DNN World this year. So we were pitching Chicago style DNN here, but then lo and behold, they announced DNN Con. So there is, in fact, some place for all DNNers to go. Chicago, or rather Palm Beach, I don't know if they've got very good pizza there, but at least they're going to have a whole bunch of DNN people there. A couple things to point out. First of all, if you're looking at the slide, you're actually looking at the homepage of dnncon.com, dnncon.com. So you'll find a little bit there, but it's really, very rudimentary. It does say October 18th and 19th, and that it is free. We asked for the sponsorship package. Jim and I, for Sprocket Websites, asked for the sponsorship package and read through it. And what I think is going on, which is similar what they typically do with these kinds of shows, is that they'll have a day of training, which there's usually a fee associated with. And then there is a quote unquote day of .NET Nuke, which is well, that is free, and it's of the variety that Will Strobe put together some years back when he first did it down in Orlando. And so I think that's the basic pattern. The first day, the 18th, which is Friday, is going to have some fee associated with it, but that's not said on their website at all. So if those that are listening in on this were thinking, I should plan 2 days, and that's great because it's free. The first day has some fees, and it's typically training. That training is usually quite good, and there's some very talented people that do that training. The second day, which is Saturday, I believe, is the free day of .NET Nuke Day. That, of course, will also have a whole bunch of sessions as well. So we're hoping to be down there. Both of us were struggling with a couple of conflicts. Jim and I are, but we're hoping to be down there, and we hope to, if we are, to see a whole bunch of people down there. Beautiful area down there, Palm Beach. Actually, West Palm Beach. Palm Beach is the ocean front, and West Palm Beach is just a tiny bit inland. But at a school there, so it should be quite good. There's very little information other than that, but I wanted to share that with you. I also mentioned that not only will there be some talk about things going on in the industry, but also things going on in Chicago. And for those that are here in Chicago that want something to do this weekend, definitely want to go to the Tall Ships at Navy Pier, which is happening this weekend as well. It starts tomorrow where the ships come in. There'll be a parade, and then all weekend long there'll be the ability to go and look at these. These are the ships from the none of them are really original ships. They're all replicas, but they bring us back to a time back in the the 1820s, 1830s, when there were these ships on the Great Lakes. So we have sort of a nautical theme. So why not go to the Atlantic Web Fitters and talk and introduce our next guest? Here is Gifford. You like this picture, Gifford? This is his. This goes on his Screen Actors Guild card. I think it's definitely a headshot for a resume for getting in movies. It's a great shot. You just got this done, right? Somewhere over in Atlanta? I think that's it.
Yeah, I've been down here in Atlanta for a while working on some projects, and one of my clients is a fairly prolific photographer, so he was insisting that we spruce up the look.
Oh, fantastic! Give the man a plug. What's his name?
His name's David Avant, and he runs he's on Facebook under David Photog Avant.
Fantastic. All righty. Gifford, we've known for 3 or 4 years now. We bump into him at the various shows, and he's always the evangelist for the DNN platform and for all things DNN and getting a bunch of websites out there. And so we asked him, what's happening, what he's planning to do, and found out that he was going to be talking down in Atlanta coming up in another week or so, a week, I think, something like that. So we asked him if he could share a little bit with the local folks. Prior to that, give us a little taste of what he's going to be talking about, and of course, just sharing his wisdom about DNN. And key thing is that he's quite the proponent for folks being able to make a living with DNN by building people's websites for them. So I'm going to switch the presentation over to you, Gifford, so you could show us screen and slides and what you have, and let's talk about just that.
Okay.
Here and giving you controls, and there you go.
Okay, you should see a slide there.
I got
my name on it. Okay, good stuff. Well, like was mentioned, I'm Gifford. I've been working with DotNetNuke since 2005, and I guess that would be around version 3 that came out. And my motivation for working with DotNetNuke is that for the longest while, 15 years, I built websites for friends and family, and didn't mind developing the sites, but it was maintaining those sites that became very arduous, and I started to get bitter and resentful and forgetful and change my phone number, change my email, not all that, but I definitely wanted to do I ended up doing a worldwide investigation to find out who was making the most significant progress as far as content management systems were concerned. And after a few months of making phone calls, hundreds of phone calls, looking for something, I didn't know what I was looking for. I just knew the functionality that I was looking for, which was to allow a client to go and log in and create and be able to manage the content using a WYSIWYG editor or a text editor. And was quoted ridiculous prices by other companies, website companies, because they were doing the same thing, wanting to do one-offs, but weren't willing to allow me to take a system and create a system. So I went out in search of my own development team and programmers, and ended up recruiting some folks, and we put together a content management system. I essentially had the team booked for a full year solid when I realized that I was going to have to find more people, and that's when I did another search for individuals who I thought may be a good fit with my organization and philosophy, which is basically creating beneficial relationships. So during that search for more talent, I came across a fella named Sam McDonald in Nova Scotia, believe it or not, and he introduced me to DotNetNuke, and we went straight into development and started doing portals for publicly traded companies and governments and universities. And again, I really didn't know all that much about DotNetNuke or its community or even any of the modules. We just used the platform to build on top of and create those modules that would fit the needs of the specific clients that we were dealing with. During the course of building some of those modules, it was brought to my attention that the Overseas Vote Foundation down in Washington, D.C. had had an interruption in their web services due to a contract dispute, and they had spent a lot of money to have a system in place whereby the overseas voters, both military and expats, can find the information that they need in order to register. At that time, it was for a midterm election. So I threw my hat into the ring and replicated their system that they had no record of. All I had was a screenshot, and was able to take DotNetNuke and replicate the functionality that they had, whereas somebody could go to the site, they could drill down to their local election official. There's over 7,200 local election officials, and we were able to facilitate getting as many ballots out as possible by allowing people to register. They were very pleased at this, and so I was flown down to Washington to meet the Secretaries of State, and this made news both here and in Canada and the United States. And it was at that point that I received an email from Sean Walker, the father of the DotNetNuke platform, and he brought it to my attention that there were many community members, DotNetNuke community members, who were very upset that DotNetNuke was not mentioned as part of the solution that I put in place for the overseas voters. That got me thinking about community and about responsibility and about paying it forward. And from that time forward, I started to become the evangelist that I am today. So I've been able to travel around North America and Europe, speaking at conferences, encouraging people to do what it is that I've done, which is build a solid business upon an open source web application framework, and we've used DotNetNuke since 2005 in order to achieve that. So that's a little bit about how I got started with DotNetNuke. Not long after that, I flew down to, I decided I would start a user group up in Nova Scotia, so really wanted to check out the authenticity of the community and most particularly the founders. I certainly didn't want to start something and not be able to complete it, so I flew down to Orlando and met with Brian Scarborough. Brian Scarborough founded the first DotNetNuke user group down in Orlando, and I went to go visit him at his place of business, and we met and we talked, and I became very, very convinced that DotNetNuke was put together by a very moral, very family-oriented and group of people. And so reached out to the co-founders of DotNetNuke and established relationships with them where, again, I would never want to affiliate myself with people who weren't of the highest quality. That's sort of my motto in life, is to try and maintain the highest quality of life possible. So that's where things started. After that, I was invited down to speak at the first day of DotNetNuke, the official first day of DotNetNuke down in Tampa in 2009. And the only reason that I went down to speak at that session was because Brian Scarborough actually gave up one of his sessions and insisted that Will Stroll and the rest of the community invite me down from Nova Scotia. And that was the first opportunity that I had to really mesh and meet the members of the DotNetNuke community. Before that time, there had been some dev conferences that were in Nevada, and I'd sent folks along to go and see what was going on, but I really wanted to get into the mix, and so began to engage the DotNetNuke community. It wasn't much longer after that we indeed put on the first day of DotNetNuke in Nova Scotia, in Canada, and that was successful. We had two of the co-founders come out, Joe Brinkman and Scott Wilhite, and it was nice to feed them lots of lobsters and show them what the red carpets look like there in Nova Scotia. So we really want to talk a little bit today, folks, about how we can encourage you, or at least open your eyes to the possibility of what can be done with DotNetNuke platform from a business model standpoint. So the conference that's coming up here, August 25th in Atlanta, I'll be speaking at that conference. Again, co-founder, DotNetNuke Corporation co-founder Joe Brinkman will also be there talking about DotNetNuke in the cloud. I'll be talking about DotNetNuke here on Earth and how we can mobilize and create a revenue that would rival any sort of employment situation. So without any further ado, any questions around any of this?
No, so far that sounds exactly what we need.
Okay, wonderful. Well, let's take a look a little bit at the DotNetNuke opportunity, if I can advance my slide. There we go. So the real question, of course, is how do you win with .NETNuke? If you're looking at trying something new, I tell everybody, you know, at one point in my life, I was tired of going to work before the kids got on the bus and coming home, and the kids were already off the bus. I was missing a lot of family time and was exhausting myself at a job where I could see the ceiling very easily. And with a couple of master's degrees under my belt, I was working in an employment situation where I didn't feel like I was overly appreciated. I was appreciated. I thought I brought a lot to the situation, but what I really have always imagined and wanted to do, and doesn't everybody imagine and want to be a part of something that they've created themselves so that they can determine when they're going to get out of bed and when they're going to go to bed and if they're going to go to work. So the draw towards entrepreneurialism is something that has always been with me. I've always had to take jobs because of necessity, but mostly during those jobs I was somebody that daydreamed about working for themselves and being an entrepreneur. So how are you going to win with .NETNuke? One of the first things that you may want to look at is quality versus quantity. And if you're going to make a living with .NETNuke, then you're going to be using DNN platform to build solutions for folks. And you can do a whole bunch of work for quantity's sake. So you may want to run as fast as you can and get as many clients on board as you can, put as many projects as you can into the pipeline, and continue to do that frantic quantity work. Or you can join me here tonight and investigate the quality of a lifestyle that is more conducive to catering to the actual business relationship, and it's more akin to partnering with clientele rather than the hit and run type of situations that we often see today. 90% of the clients that I pick up because they've been orphaned. Whoever built their website has abandoned them and has left them very vulnerable. And as a result, they're very reticent to get involved again. So we have some work to do as far as the detrimental effects that the webmasters out there, these gunslingers, and out there again, you know, doing hundreds of websites a year, I was far more interested in developing deep and meaningful relationships with businesses, proving and justifying my place at the table. And as a result of taking what I would consider to be a very high road, or at least a relationship-oriented road, I've been able to secure relationships with firms whose CEOs now welcome me at the supper table. So I've always been very eager to develop relationships that have longevity. So I'm in it for the long haul. You may opt for quantity, and you may want, you know, hundreds and hundreds of websites that you want to build, but I'd like to introduce something along the line of a quality approach to offering .NET So the next question is, I don't know what you're making right now, but I'd like to know how much you'd like to earn. So if you're making a $60,000 a year paycheck right now and you're commuting back and forth to work every day, then how much money do you need to earn in order to substantiate and to sustain your quality of life, your living, your means? So how much do you want to earn? And I'm going to go on the assumption that a pretty decent programmer or a pretty decent developer would most likely make a little bit less, or maybe between $50,000 and $100,000 a year for their work. Maybe that's certainly not a researched figure, but usually a pretty good developer can fetch between $50,000 and $60,000, and if they're a senior developer, then they can do more. So I'm going to operate under the assumption that you're going to want to make more doing and working for yourself than you ever would working with someone else. So I'm going to help choose a figure that should suffice. So everybody is going to chime up and say, I want to make $120,000 a year. And that's what we're going to go on. So if you're interested and you want to know how to make $120,000 a year, and you want to do that according to a quality continuum, then let's take a look at how that can happen. The first thing that you need to do if you're going to have a quality, doesn't matter if it's US or Canadian, they're pretty much par right now. Sorry, I'm just answering one of the questions that popped up there. So $100 a month per client, it breaks down to offering a particular client 12 hours of annual support. If you can position yourself in a relationship with somebody, whereas you are constantly, whether it's search engine optimization, or whether it's ongoing consulting, or whether it's competitive analysis, whatever your skill set is, if you're going to approach and you want to generate a recurring income, then you need to look at a figure of 12 hours a year per client. Sign them up for that. I actually don't use contracts with the clients that I have now, simply because the quality of the clients that I have now are such, and the work that I deliver is such, that they would be, well, they just don't leave. I have I'm trying to think of the word, attrition, I guess is it. I really don't struggle with attrition. Once I'm situated and once I prove the return on investment for the solution that I'm going to put in place, then I'm able to justify that. And so $100 a month is the beginning rate for me. I have clients that pay upwards of $500 to $1,000 a month to have me on board as the solution provider. I would also like to suggest that unless you're working very, very closely with a hoster, that you keep this $100 a month per client separate from the hosting charge and the hosting situation that they're in. Now, if you're a hosting company, you can offer both hosting and support, but I would be very inclined to keep those separate, simply because if you're not hosting the solution and there's a problem, you don't want your phone to ring at 3 o'clock in the morning. I offer both, so my phone does ring at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I don't mind that at all. I would rather take full responsibility for the hosting and support excuse me, of every DNN installation that we put in. Excuse me. So again, got to set a standard here, 12 hours. So I typically offer 12 to 60 hours setup or conversion to .NETNuke. Don't even factor that in at all at this point. Let's just keep that as an aside, or maybe that's something that we can talk about afterwards. So $100 a month per client, that's what we're going to use as the basis to earn $120,000 a year, and that's recurring revenue, okay? All you have to do is locate 100 clients. 100 clients who are willing to pay you for 12 hours of your support, your expertise. You need 100 clients. Once you reach 100 clients, then you will be generating $120,000 a year with .NETNuke.
Pretty simple math.
Very simple math and very relationship oriented. And if anybody has any questions about how to justify those 12 hours, then I would be very happy to outline for you how you can approach the CEO and the CFO based on a system, proprietary system that I've developed in order to generate a positive response. Once you're done working and showing the client how you can do that, how they can do that, how you guys can work together, then it's really a matter of simple math working backwards.
Well, what do you suggest for the what the client is getting for his hour each month? What is it that you're doing for them for the hour? Is it reviewing the site and updating things? Is it social media? Is it search engine? Is it or any combination? Or is it something that you consider specific to DNN, like keeping them updated with the latest version, etc.?
Well, one of the things that Atlantic Webfitters is really proud to do is to offer IT support for companies that wouldn't normally be able to afford a full-time IT staff. So what I typically do is I just look for the gaps. You know, if I put up a site and I notice that they don't have a Facebook fan page, and I notice that the CEO is not on LinkedIn or on Twitter, then I'm very, very quickly, and again, most of the proposals, if I do a SEO proposal, well, I'm going to spend 8 hours probably the first month doing all that SEO work, and then I'm going to spend an hour every 3 months. And that's 12 hours taken up in a year. So I assume a lot of risks, right? I'll do 12 hours setup and 12 hours annual support, but I'll amortize that over a year. And I'll give them the first month for free. So after 3 weeks, they can determine whether or not I'm worth $2,400 for the rest of the year, and they'll pay $200 a month.
Okay.
Okay. Now, social media, I've sold packages anywhere from 36 hours a year up to 48 hours, 60 hours a year, 120 hours a year. That's $1,000 a month. Right? So it's basically whatever work needs to be done, making sure that you craft up your proposals and you do the work, but amortizing that work, again, is something that helps. And again, I want the monthly recurring revenue. That's the model, is the monthly recurring revenue. So $120,000 a year means that we're going to be doing $10,000 a month. That's where we want to be. So, and again, there's really important ways to approach how to justify that. I'll just touch on it a little bit. It has to do with lead generation. If it takes 10 leads in order to get 3 appointments to make 1 sale, and that 1 sale is worth $1,000 net to the organization, then you can justify that 10 leads are worth $1,000. That means that each lead is worth $100. And then as soon as you put in the process, the solution in place whereby you are generating leads, then that is the thermometer by which you can justify the return on investment. Hey, I got you 20 leads this month. That's worth $2,000 to you, and you only pay me $100 a month? Are you getting a deal?
Ah.
Okay? So you have to think relationship, folks. That's what these companies out there are doing. They're trying to interrupt, engage, educate, and offer their services to people, and all we're doing is facilitating and helping. Right? And once you can establish how much a lead is worth, how much a new human being is worth to them, somebody who volunteers to get up on your newsletter list, then that's a warm lead. That's a hot lead. So that's how you can justify your position at the table. Again, a lot of people out there, webmasters are out there, they'll do your site for you and they'll walk away. And you can do that with DNN as much as you want to. As a matter of fact, it'll be more business for me down the road, because what people really want is they want to focus on their core strengths, which is getting out there and doing what they do best, not sitting in front of a computer trying to figure out how they can make changes or edits and whatnot. They can, right? They have the power to do that, and a lot of smaller companies will do that because, you know, their companies are more like their babies, so they like to babysit, and they like to be involved, and they like to log in, change the content, offer a new blog, all of those good things, right? But there's other companies out there that would rather have somebody champion their cause. And again, if you stick with quality versus quantity, then you can go into a client situation and you can say, hey, guess what? I see what you're doing, and I also see that you have a lot of competition. Well, guess what? Your competition is now my competition, because I only choose one client in your vertical. That means that I will never accept one of your competitors as a client. Again, quality relationship versus quantity jobs. You have to factor in which of those you want to be. I tell people that Atlantic Webfitters is first and foremost a relationship company. So one of the things, certainly one of the things that you want to do here when you're going to move forward, and I just have a couple more slides here I'll tap on quickly. Choose your modules carefully. Okay, you might be able to support DNN platform by yourself, but if you introduce a third-party module and something happens to that module down the road, that could cause that solution to stop functioning. And if that solution stops functioning and you can't find the guy who created your third-party module, then you're in a lot of trouble. You're gonna fall apart really quickly. So modules need to be supported by the guys, the girls that create those modules. So if you're going to tackle a vertical, right, if you're going to go after a solution and introduce a solution into any marketplace, whether it's a school or whether it's churches or whether it's different nonprofit organizations, choose your modules carefully. Contact the module developer. Let him know what you're doing. And if you're smart, you'll cut him in, cut her in, right, and make her a part of the solution, okay? Because without support for your solution, you're just another guy out there who could potentially orphan a client. So choose your modules carefully. Once you have your modules, then you can choose a vertical. Now I'm going to talk about one module built by Oliver Hine, and that module, what it does is it allows you to place an instance of this module on in a DotNetNuke installation, and then you can use that module to reference your Flickr or your Picasa albums on Yahoo or on Google, and you can pull those albums from Google or Yahoo into your portal, and then choose a vast array of presentation models to show those images. That one module means that I no longer have clients who are uploading 5 meg images to the DNN instance, right? They're simply managing their albums on their Google or on their Yahoo account and then referencing those assets to display on their portal. That saves my servers a lot of space, and it saves a lot of bandwidth. That is one module. Again, oliverhine.com if you want to go and have a look at some of Oliver's work. He's been the Robin Hood of the .NET community, offering open source and free MIT licensed software that runs on the DNN platform. That's one module that you could go and you could approach any industry or any vertical that is photo heavy, before and after, job sites, house building, landscapers, photographers, videographers, any of these folks that want to maintain a portfolio of their digital graphic work. You have a vertical. So one module, you've already got a vertical. You've got 4 or 5 verticals that you can chase after. One module, fantastic support. Again, oliverhine.com. I'm just going to leave this one and actually skip this one. It's going to be up to everybody to choose their hoster. Again, I would encourage you, if you're going to choose a hoster, go to his house, meet his wife, meet his kids, find out how he lives, because if you're going to build your life and the lives of your clients on a hosted solution, then you want to have an intimate, again, quality versus quantity. You want to have an intimate relationship with your hoster. Something happens and your site goes offline, you want a hoster who's going to pick up the phone at 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay? Choose your hoster carefully. Your reputation, the reputation of your firm, is going to be built upon the quality of relationship that you have with your hoster. That's pretty much all I had to say about the DNN opportunity and how to build the recurring revenue model based on quality relationships. Any questions or thoughts that you might have? I'm just going to stop talking now because I can go on indefinitely.
If anybody wants to jump in with a question, please do.
Hey, Gifford, this is Scott.
Hey, bud.
Hey, so I'm curious. I think I've heard you talk about this before, and so I think now that I've heard you talk about it again, it's really I'm really understanding it. And one thing I'm interested in is you offer the 12 hours per year at that reoccurring rate, and obviously that probably turns into when you build these relationships, obviously that it turns into more and more work, right? And
yes.
What is your typical thing? I'm working with different organizations and seeing how they do things, how they do like scopes of work and bidding on new projects from existing clients, and then even as the business becomes too big for one person to handle, how have you grown, or have you grown?
Well, you mean as far as the organization and the numbers of soldiers that I have working under me?
Yeah. How did that organic growth happen? When did you realize that these relationships were turning into too much work for one person to handle?
Well, typically, yeah. I mean, I used to do a lot of skinning, and I used to do a lot of CSS stuff, and I used to do some coding and stuff like that. And then it just over time, there were people that approached me and expressed an interest in offering their skill set, and I was able to replace my skill set, limited skill sets, with people that had a really strong core competency. For instance, as far as skinning goes, I was approached by Tracy Wettenkeller from T-Works and down at DNN World, and we quickly learned that I'd been using one of his skins for about 4 years that he had entered into a contest. We developed a very fast relationship, and within a matter of 2 weeks, I determined that I would never tweak another CSS style sheet again in my life. I found my Skinner, and we've been able to work together very successfully. I can move projects, entire projects, skinning projects over to him. So again, it's always keeping your ear to the ground and looking for the best in class and looking for people with those core competencies. If they have core competencies, you may be talking about expanding your sales force. And if so, then what I do in order to expand the sales force is I'm extremely generous on the percentages that are doled out during the setup phase of the relationship. So if I do a 36-hour job and it's $3,600, I'll likely give a good portion of that, is up to half of that money, to the person who made the deal happen. So if you want to expand and you want to grow, you know, give your money away. I try to run my company right on the black line. Anything that's left over at the end of the month, I try and dole out, you know. Again, everybody who's going to get involved with you is going to get involved with you for one reason, and that's because it's better than working at McDonald's.
The individuals that you're talking about, like for instance, you mentioned Tracy, and T-Works is his organization. So are you saying that that you tie in with other organizations rather than bringing employees in?
Yes, my philosophy right from the get-go was to never have an employee.
Okay.
Okay, so that should probably be established right off the bat. Yeah, no employees. I'm not dealing with employees. People in my organization, and again, loosely in my organization, people that I'm affiliated with are super aggressive workaholics who I don't have to worry about them showing up or not showing up for a paycheck. And a lot of the people that I do business with now, I mean, I already have my 100 clients signed up for myself, right? That I deal with by myself. Now it's a matter of co-supporting clients. So I'll bring in a third-party module developer, and we'll put a solution in place, and then we'll co-host or co-support that client, and we get to both share in the recurring revenue. But as far as pure salespeople go, they're commission paid. You know, they don't work, they don't eat. I was never ever going to put myself in a situation where I had to fire somebody. Number one, I really wouldn't have the heart to do that. So rather than have to fire people, I decided that I just wouldn't hire them.
All right.
I'm a big softie, right? I really like people a lot. And to be honest, right, you know, I'm always honest, but I don't have any business experience or business courses, or like I didn't study. That's not what I studied when I went to school. I studied theology and studied divinity and religious education. So I dropped out of a doctorate in ministry when I started this company. So again, I'm far more interested in people than I am the money equation. I know that you have to make money, but again, that kind of relationship approach, a lot of clients, you know, get mad at me because, you know, I didn't send them the bill on time, right? And they're eager to pay, right? I mean, these are the kinds of relationships that I really like being surrounded by. And again, pay your guys well. And the growth for Atlantic Webfitters has been very slow and very organic. And again, deliberately, I am interested in a quality of life more than anything else.
Oh yeah, and I know that feeling when a client contacts you and says, you know, didn't you owe me an invoice so I could pay you something? That's a great feeling.
It is exactly. And I feel very fortunate. I'm 44 years old, and I really didn't think that I was, you know, 8 years ago when I started Atlantic Webfitters, I never realized that Atlantic Webfitters and DotNetNuke would create an entire ecosystem that I would thrive in. My clients have become my very nearest and dearest friends, and I have fallen in love with the community. It's a wonderful thing to establish relationships with other .NET folks from all over the world. I know I can jump on a plane and I can land in just about any country in the world and know that there's somebody that loves .NET waiting for me at the airport. And it's always been the same the other way. Anybody that's ever wanted to come to Nova Scotia, I've always had a car arranged for them at the airport, and happy to take them touring about and let them sleep in my bed. And you know, it's one of those things. It's the most endearing aspect of .NET to me are the relationships and the community that surround it. Absolutely love. It doesn't matter if I know you or not. If you're at a .NET conference, you got a guy who loves you. And so very fortunate at my age to make such near and dear and close friends. I just feel like I really owe a lot to the people and the supports and the relationships that I've established over the years, present company included.
We had we certainly knew that from the very first time we met you when you were at the Day of .NET New Chicago, that was the kind of person that you were. Very much a relationship person, very much a friendly person, very much somebody that says that you know, DNN is great stuff, and I'm willing to talk to you about it and help you with it if I can. So we knew that that would be the kind of message that we'd hear from you today, and the gravy of it all is that you showed that there's some ways of thinking through the numbers where, yeah, you can actually earn a living and do this. I know what you mean about wanting to do something almost as a ministry and not sure if you could afford to do it and feed the family, and just thinking through the math like you showed us tonight, yeah, you kind of can. So hopefully those that are with us, as well as those that watch the presentation here, we'll have that on chicagodnn.org for people to watch and listen to, and they'll get some inspiration as well as some practical thoughts about how to do this. So thanks very much for being here with us.
Thank you. It's an honor to spend time with you guys, and you know, if we can get one more person to tell their boss to take that job and shove it and come over to our side of the force, love to see more people out at the .NET Nuke events. We'd love to see this community grow. It would be great for us to leave a legacy and something for our children to aspire to and to step into. I know as I get older and other folks get older, I already see the second generation that's growing up and experiencing the software. So hopefully we'll see a strong ecosystem and maintain that friendly, good folks feeling. I really appreciate being here tonight, folks. And if there's anything that I can do to help you to further understand the business models that can be constructed using .NET Nuke, then do feel free to contact me through the presenters here, James Nagy and Don Gingold. Again, thank you, gentlemen.
Wonderful. I'm going to see if I can't switch presenters here so I can put up another slide and then wrap things up. We were going to keep it right around an hour, and that's fallen in just almost perfectly. We're just a couple minutes over. So the folks that are on, thank you for being here with us. Those that are watching, hope you got some good stuff out of it. Thanks very much, Gifford, and thank you for the contributors asking questions, etc. What we're talking about, the last thing we want to mention just is that we do this every month. We do it on the second Tuesday. The first Tuesday. That's been our schedule, and we bounce back and forth between doing it live in a meeting place with where we get to see people face to face, and doing this virtual kind of a thing. We don't have our location nailed down next month, but we would like to try to do something live. so that we can get together, and we'll keep everybody apprised of what's going on. As Jim had pointed out, there's lots of ways to keep track of Chicago-style DNN on the various social media platforms. Visiting chicagodnn.org, that's the base model, base point, and then you can always go to Facebook or Twitter or Meetup, LinkedIn. You'll find us. So. Hopefully, coming back to the site or someplace like that, you'll find out the details of next month. But you know that you could put it on your calendar the first Tuesday at 7 o'clock, and we may be live or we may be on a virtual thing, but we'll be meeting. So I want to talk with you and have you join us then. So thanks, everybody, and we'll be talking to you soon. Bye-bye.